Hey folks, it's Jim. Going to do the large rack install. Comes in a box like this. Big box because it's a big platform. But there is a little technical difficulty when I received my package. I received 2 bags of nuts, bolts, and washers. Now if you notice, these are very long bolts, which wouldn't work for this project. We also don't need nuts for this project. We do need washers. And in this bag, only 2 washers came. And this is the nuts or the bolts that are going to work, okay? And so I put the Allen wrench in there just to be prepared for the project. But these washers came in this bag with these nuts and bolts. So I knew something was wrong right away, since these are the bolts that fit the tap for the mounting. And there was only 2 washers, so I knew we had a problem because we at least know we need 4. And then I realized when I put it together, and you'll see that in a moment, that the bottom without these washers could be a potential stress point and damage the actual large platform. Just because of the way it was designed to go together. So now we have 8 washers instead of, in the video that Rad does, they show you 4, okay? So now we have 8 smaller washers, and these are larger washers, which we're not going to use because they're a little thicker than these. They appear to be a little bit anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to use all 8 that came in this bag, which is, I presume, what Rad Power Bikes wants us to do. So let's go ahead and mount our kit together, which means we want to put these 8 washers in this bag. So we want to put 1 washer on the top, 1 washer on the top, and then we're going to have some washers for the bottom too. Just doing that because we already had those bolts out. So then we're going to dump the rest in the bag. And then we're going to move over to the bike. Okay, so we're going to leave these 2 washers out since they are different from the other group that we had. Okay, so let's move over to the bike. I just wanted to cover that first. You're going to get 2 bags possibly like I did, and then you got to sort things out, and that's the way I did it. So let's move over to the bike. And let's look at the platform. Sorry about that. So you can see we have the large platform here. Hopefully everything's in. And you can see, so after looking at it, the rails go on the bottom, okay? You can see the rails crop at the bottom. So that's the side you want down, I would imagine. And so then they're just going to fit right on like this. Now if you'll notice, 2 of the bolts are back to the back. That goes back towards the back of your rack, okay? And 2 of the bolts are closer to center. That goes towards the front, right? Pretty simple, straightforward. Nothing to really be concerned about there. The only problem was really trying to separate the nuts and bolts and make sure we had the right kit for the job, right? So what we're going to do, so the rack, once you get the rack up there, it's pretty slippery. So what we're going to do right away is get a bolt in with a washer, and we're going to go from there, okay? Anyway, which is going to make it a lot more difficult to install. Not a lot more, but more cumbersome, because if you drop these little washers, why, you are in trouble. The other thing that I found interesting in the bag of stuff that came, or the 2 bags, is some of the inner diameter of the washers, the ID, were different. And I think the engineers wanted the smaller ID, but since we're stuck with 7 of the larger ID on the washers, we're kind of stuck with what we're stuck with. But what that allowed to do, I think what happened was this platform down here for our bolt setting was almost the size of the hole that's in the rack, the large platform. And I think over time, what they realized is that it could possibly cause some stress and damage that hole if you had the 10 kilograms max load on there. So I think that's what they did, and the washer underneath now helps to disperse some of that weight. So I think we'll be a little better off long term doing that. So let's just continue to get these mounted. I might be in your way on this shot, trying to get this back one in. So bear with me. But that's what we got to do. Yeah, I almost lost the washer right there, which is, putting these washers down on the bottom side is a pain in the butt. I got to tell you. Because if you drop one while you're taking more time, right? All that. All right, so let's get that in. Let's do the front two, and then we'll start torquing. And you can see how much bigger this large platform is. You're going to really have to take considerations when riding, parking, all of that stuff. And I've kind of thought this through and said, okay. And so I know now I need some time and some practice. Because this is big. Okay, this large platform is really big, as you can see. It about doubles, square inch wise, our working platform space. So kind of interested. Let's get that in there. All right. And make sure you don't drop those, especially if you're working on a lawn like I am. You might find yourself having a little bit of struggle to we're not getting our threads going here. There we go. Feels like we finally got it. Yeah, you don't want to tighten these down like anything else until you get everything mounted, right? Because it's like anything else with a 4-bolt pattern. We want it to fit properly. So what I did was, just so you know, I put the Allen wrench in the little bag. Once I sorted out the materials we were going to use for this job, I went ahead and put the Allen wrench in the bag as well, just to make it more convenient for me, because I wanted to sit out in the sun with and do this video. So anyway, yeah. So there you go. Now, yeah, so it's not that difficult to mount, obviously. I mean, it's not technically difficult, but I just wanted to do this video because when I received the rack, boy, that was really, I was like, what? Those aren't the right bolts. And then, you know, I had to find the other bag inside. And then I realized, okay, we have two bags here because the engineering team realized that the hole in the rack itself is just too big. So we need to disperse some of that stress that eventually can come from our 10 kilos of weight on this platform, which could be side to side. That could be a lot of stress when we hit a bump, right? So that's why we need the bottom washers, apparently. Just looking at it structurally, that's what I feel is going on here. These aren't really difficult to get in, unlike the rack bolts themselves. So what I want to do is go corner to corner like any other 4-bolt pattern when assembling something. Okay, and we're just going to get it down close to snug, and then we'll come back and do our final torque. All right, and that's just something that I do when I assemble anything, due to experience with bolt patterns and torque and stress on metals, things of that nature. But yeah, so I hope that this is helpful to someone who may receive their large platform and say, hey, what's this? I think I've answered the question for you here. You know, that's one of the things I don't like about Rad's assembly videos. They're you know, they're like a silent movie with music, and you know, we're trying to assemble something. So I would prefer, if we start doing speech videos, so that we can get the information we need, such as this, right? That the fact that you may run into a definite problem here. And don't over torque these again, because we have that bolt pattern problem with the oversized hole in the platform. There I go, dropping the wrench. Sorry, it's cold out here. Yeah, we're below freezing. We got some wind and whatnot. I had my gloves on as long as I could, but yeah, so yeah, and torque these down, try and get them even. You might want to do one final torque, as I will do. Yeah, those are, and we've got plenty of washers up there, so that'll be our final torque. Don't over torque these again, because that hole is very large. While the washer will protect it, I still don't feel comfortable with it, because I think the hole on these washers, the ID, is too big. And I think that's why we got one smaller ID washer. But that's it. You need the Allen wrench. You need to separate your parts with the 2 bags Rad sends you. And then you've got your large rack. So there you go. That's a simple install on the large rack. I hope it's been informative. Let's take a look at it from a step back view. All right. And there you go, and you can see how big that is. So, yeah, that is one big platform. It, like I say, it almost doubles the size of the previous. Look, and it's going to work well for my long trip. That's why I'm doing this. I can load, like I say, my entire camping setup will go on the front. Of course, it's all lightweight gear, so, you know, it depends on what gear you have, of course.